Now, let's walk through the method that validates the contents of the asset group info entry, validate asset requirements. First, we iterate through the items in our asset group info entry and flag any invalid asset types. Each entry contains a list of assets which are represented by strings, which is a resource name in the event the asset already exists in the Google Ads account. Otherwise, the string will be the actual text of a text asset or the URL of an image asset. If the string is a resource name, we'll assume it's valid because of the validation we performed in the asset selection process. If not, we'll check if the asset meets the requirements for the asset field type. For a text asset, this is just the string length. For an image, we need to check the aspect ratio and the image size, as well as the image dimensions. We perform the asset validation in a method called asset violations, which returns a list of any violations for the given asset field type. We use a similar strategy as earlier by adding all valid assets to a list, which will ultimately return. If there are any asset errors and the skip invalid asset setting is not set to true, we'll return an empty dictionary indicating an error in the asset group info entry. Otherwise, we'll validate the number of assets for each field. In validate num assets, we iterate through our asset requirements entries to ensure we're not missing any. Then, we check if the number of assets for each field type in our asset group info entry satisfies the min and max requirements for the given field type. We can adjust for exceeding the maximum number by using the remove excess assets setting. If we have an appropriate number of assets, when accounting for that setting, we'll return the possibly updated asset group info dictionary or an empty dictionary if not. We've now fully validated our asset group info entry. Back in our valid asset groups method, we'll know if it's valid if validate asset group info is non-empty, in which case we'll validate the asset group signals. This step is fairly trivial. We check if any of the provided asset group signal fields have more items than allowed. If so, we'll return the asset group. If not, and remove excess signals is true, we'll drop any excess signals. And if remove excess signals is not true, we'll return an empty dictionary, signaling we should not create the asset group. If we still have a valid asset group at this point, we'll add the possibly updated asset group to our locally defined list of valid asset groups. At this point, we have our original list of asset groups and our list of updated asset groups, which present three possibilities. The length of the two lists are equal, meaning all asset groups are valid, so we should validate the number of asset groups. The length of the two lists are not equal, meaning some asset groups are invalid, and skip invalid asset groups is set to true, in which case we should still validate the number of asset groups. Or 3, the length of the two lists are not equal, but skip invalid asset groups is not true. So in this case, we return an empty list, which indicates the campaign should not be created altogether. All PMAX campaigns need between 1 and 100 asset groups. If we've gotten to this point, we know we have at least one valid asset group. So we need to check we haven't exceeded the maximum. If not, we'll return the list of asset groups. If there are more than 100 asset groups, but the remove excess asset group setting is true, we'll return a list of the first 100 asset groups. Otherwise, we'll return an empty list so that the campaign is not created. As far as our bidding strategy goes, we need to check that the provided value is one of two allowed types: maximize conversions and maximize conversion value. In addition, we can optionally set the target return on advertising spend, but only with a maximize conversion value bidding strategy. So we need to make sure we're using maximize conversion value if target ROAS is set.